are in a Google Hangout with Chris Carvalho and Aleki. I don't know your last name. What's your last name, Aleki?
Rogers.
Aleki Rogers. What's up,
Hey,
guys?
Will.
Afternoon,
Hey.
everyone, or morning, I should say.
Morning over
Yes, good
there.
morning. It's like 8 in the morning here. It's 4 in the afternoon for you guys. So one of y'all is like in the middle of the day, and I just woke up.
It's still
Awesome.
coffee o'clock though.
Yeah, I haven't even made my coffee yet. Oh man, I'm behind.
So, Will, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Excellent. So obviously, how we originally connected was via your awesome vlog
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the YouTube.
Started commenting on every video, and I was like, "Who's this guy? This creeper's like stalking me." And then I found you and looked up on Facebook, and you're actually a stand-up gentleman.
Oh, takes one to know one, man. Takes one to know one.
That's definitely a good description of old Chris.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, man, I totally loved the content, especially last year when you were doing a daily vlog. I mean, that's such a huge commitment, and you fully executed on it.
Yeah,
I
in
in
some ways I
about
missed
6
it.
months in.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think I came in about 6 months in. You were about 6 months in when I first started seeing
Yeah,
your videos, and then I was hooked.
I very much miss doing the daily grind. It really was something very special to release a piece of content every single day, to make that challenge to yourself to create something every day. And I sort of wound down right before my wedding because there's like, there's so much to do when it comes to a wedding that, I didn't want to be spending an hour or two every night putting a video together and neglecting my responsibilities to Leslie, my now wife. So yeah, it became less of a daily thing, but I might ramp it up again. We'll see.
I'd love that. Well,
Yeah.
you know, you'd have my backing on that for sure, man.
Yeah.
Definitely, there's some amazing content in there, and I guess sort of the sort of raw and immediate nature of it, but doing it in a daily sense gives it so much more relatability to a lot of people in the way that they work.
Yeah, definitely. There's always when if you are interested in doing a daily vlog, that type of thing, the real important thing is that you pick a core subject that you'll never ever get tired of talking about. Because literally, I could go a full year and I could probably keep going if it weren't for the wedding. I definitely could pick up again and just keep talking about audio stuff because it is such a passion of mine, and there's just this endless well of knowledge and information out there that can always be discussed and broken down and talked about. And
Absolutely. I mean, what I loved about it as well was that it was very much a vlog in the traditional sense, as much as a you know, information content, channel.
yeah, totally.
I quite like that. Sometimes it was kind of just
going to dinner right now.
Exactly.
Then I'm gonna go do some mixing.
and that's another thing as well, man. You grinded it out, even though you had because you had the day job at the time.
Yep.
And you were doing mixing, and you were
Yep.
vlogging. You're doing mixing, doing audio consultations, and then obviously there's recording the vlog, because that wasn't the vlog itself. You obviously put effort into that as well, because it was like different scenes, different angles.
Sure.
And then obviously that had to be edited down. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear if you were like up until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning at times. No?
Sometimes, yeah. 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 At the beginning, I didn't really know. The first vlog that I put up was really the first video I ever edited with Final Cut Pro. So at the beginning, I really had no idea what I was doing, and I would just machine gun film everything I saw. And so at the beginning, yeah, editing took a long time because there was a lot of content. But towards the end, you know, I knew when I woke up the morning the message that I wanted to say for the day, and there really isn't much more footage than what you actually see in the end product, because you know, it's pretty much set on, you know, I know what needs to be filmed to make a good video today.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I can imagine your skills just increase over that time doing a
Oh
daily vlog every day. It's a really good way to just sort of learn by doing, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I was watching right before I started the vlog. I was watching a lot of Casey Neistat, who's like best vlogger alive or something like that. Who knows? But very subjective. But you know, his style is kind of what inspired me. And then I had a really good friend of mine that's very. He's sort of a fairly well-known percussion player in town, and I was recording him for a band that he's in, and he asked me. I was telling him about how I have a mobile recording setup that I can fit in a camera bag. And I use this Zoom, this guy right here, Zoom H6, just to like super portable. The preamps sound great. Throw it over your shoulder and you're good to go. And I was telling him, like, yo, if you ever need, you know, remote recording, I can pack up this studio quality sound and take it wherever we need to go. And he says, oh, that's awesome. Do you do video too? No. He's like, you should do video. I'm always looking for people that can be a one-stop shop for a music video. Okay, well, I like this guy Casey Neistat. I just got a camera for Christmas. This guy really wants me to learn video. I'll do it. I'm gonna do it. So yeah, the 1 year of vlogging was really great primer in how to film and edit and direct and produce and be a one-stop shop for video as well.
Absolutely, it's definitely a key part of the audio industry is, or not only in a sense of self-production, but there's a vast amount of work in the industry within broadcast, within any sort of television production, TV, which is in a way linked heavily to music, but also a little bit of a separate entity when you bring in surround sound, etc., and things like that. You're kind of having the sort of background and the knowledge in both is definitely a good grounding to sort of expand your possible roles or challenges that you might want to come across.
Oh yeah, big time. I work for this composer. His name's Kevin Kiner, and he works on. He does Star Wars Rebels, the animated series, Jane the Virgin, a Transformers animated series. He did Making a Murderer on Netflix and Hell on Wheels, and just like he's done a ton of stuff. And definitely learning the video aspect of things has helped me being his score mixer. You know, just getting a better grasp of frame rate and understanding what needs to, you know, how audio and film relate to each other in terms of changing scenes and where the audio should swell in or die out, or if it should be an abrupt right on the cut, or you know, if it should carry over, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, especially with things like, say, dialogue, Foley, room tone, and all the other little details that come in. It's definitely a minefield.
Yeah, and you know, in terms of like video and stuff like that, it's just a necessary skill in this day and age. You know, the amount of video that people are consuming is not going to slow down anytime soon at all.
That's right. That's right. It's in terms of advertising, I think I've heard video is like the #1 right now. If you're gonna do advertising, don't just put up a picture. Don't just, you know, put up a soundbite. Video is advertising right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Short form, bite-sized video is the consumer market these days.
Yep. At least on Facebook. Yeah. At least on Facebook.
Facebook.
Cool. So let's talk about audio and mixing and mastering and stuff. So you now work with Howie Weinberg.
Yes. So
which
Howie
is
Weinberg
awesome.
did Nirvana. He's a mastering engineer. He did Nirvana's Nevermind. He's done a huge amount of the Metallica catalog. Smashing Pumpkins, Limp Bizkit, Jeff Buckley's Grace, Red Hot Chili Peppers. He did Gorillaz, Demon Days, 21 Pilots. Like, you too. He's the man.
Serious names in there, yeah.
He's insane. He's so good, and really his name is synonymous with some of the best records ever made. I actually got that gig through a friend. I was working at a publishing company out in the Valley, San Fernando Valley, and a friend of mine there heard about the gig, and he actually went to Howie's studio, and Howie said, "Hey, I need a guy that knows a little bit about mastering and can be my assistant, and it doesn't pay amazing, but it pays some, and it's not quite full-time, but it's mostly full-time." And my friend was like, "Well, I've been working at this company for a lot of years. I've gotten some promotions, and I've got good money, and it's full-time, and I don't really know about mastering, but I know exactly the guy for you." And so, yeah, so he hit me up and gave me Howie's number. I gave Howie a call. Howie called me back in about 5 minutes and set up to meet the next day. I met the next day. He's like, "Yeah, you're the guy. When can you start?"
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really quick, really fast, and really a remarkable. Definitely a blessing. Definitely nothing that I did on my part, other than be prepared, other than being the guy with the skill set to do that job. And I know there's a whole bunch of guys with the skill set to do that job, but just being at the right place at the right time.
Taking the opportunity, it does make a difference in creating that.
Absolutely. I could have definitely gone the safe way and be making more money and working full time, taking
What's the fun in that?
here and putting it there, and then just,
That's not what we do, man.
yeah. So that's not what we do. No. No. So yeah, it's been wonderful. Absolutely.
It's an amazing opportunity to sort of work under someone with such a sort of amazing repertoire and experience in the industry. Have you found that that's a key influence on yourself, as having worked under him for a while now?
It has become a key influence on my sound. Absolutely.
Is it louder?
Input game.
Is it louder? Yes.
Yeah.
Louder. But also, it is.
I know it is
more dynamic. It is.
that one.
There you go.
It is loud and it is dynamic. You know, he's really taught me a lot about what to look for in a VU meter. He's taught me a lot about just clipping converters. You know,
you were doing a bit of that before, weren't you? Because I remember you doing that in the vlog.
I did that in a vlog once or twice because I read something about it online, and I thought, oh, hey, maybe this is a good idea. I'll clip this by 0.2 decibels and see if I can get just an inch little extra volume out of it. But the way he does it, man, and of course he has an Analog Audio Eclipse, which is $7,000 unit, and that is clocked by an Antelope 10M rubidium atomic whatever amazing master clock, and he has an SPL console that's on 120 volt rails and just like so much headroom. He can crank 6-8 dBs into his converter, and it's not going to distort. It's just going to get thicker and louder and taller and bigger and deeper and amazing.
No.
Yeah. So actually, just recently I sold my Apogee Symphony and purchased a Pure 2, Antelope Audio Pure 2, which is sort of the little brother to Antelope Audio Eclipse, which they just discontinued. But yeah, with the Pure 2 now, I can definitely push it a lot harder than I could the Apogee. Something about the acoustically focused clocking that they use. I have, actually, I'm just going to turn you guys around real quick. You're literally sitting on it right now. This is,
Nice.
yeah, so the Pure 2 and the Rupert Neve Designs Master Bus Processor. On the back of this unit, there's little indented screws, and you can really fine tune and tweak the input and output gains of the main in and out. So I've sort of optimized it to hit the MBP at a perfect level, and then come out of the MBP where about 50% volume on the MBP is digital zero. And so I can crank the MBP twice as loud and just get, well, I mean, I can just entirely crush it. I can entirely ruin a song. I have the power. But you know, knowing the right amount of gain and looking at your monitors and meters correctly to know what's the right dynamics, what's the right volume, what's the right loudness. There's so much control here. It's really, for just 2 units, it's really something incredible.
I'll have to send you some audio files, Will. You know, you can be my clip guy.
You're what?
You can be my clip engineer.
Yes. I keep
sending it to the clip engineer now.
Yeah, outsource all clipping needs.
I was thinking you, me, and Nick Lorenzo should do a mastering off, where all 3 of us get 1 song and we do 3 different masters, and we just put it out to all our different groups and be like, hey, here's 3 different world-class mastering engineers and their take on 1 song.
So that's a thing that's definitely happening.
Please do that. Bringing up on that, the big thing I'd be interested to see there is probably the slightly contrasting styles or approach to mastering, mainly looking at hybrid, analog, and in the box.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'm saying in Chris's case, it's very much an in the box guy.
Yeah.
And yourself, I'm saying there's a fair amount of analog going on in there as well, and Nick as well as a hybrid.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, in your experience, I'm guessing you worked with Howie, who's very analog thing. What's your take on this infamous topic?
Analog versus digital. Well, there's always the right tool for the job, and there's a lot of jobs that need different tools, and sometimes the digital tool is better, and sometimes the analog tool is better. You don't try and screw in a Phillips screw with a flathead screwdriver. You don't try to screw in a flathead with a Phillips. Like you can't. Well, you can, and it's going to look crappy, and you're going to mess up the screw if you use the wrong tool.
It's a good analogy for that. Yeah,
that's all I got on that.
So you find yourself doing a hybrid kind of thing?
What's that?
You find yourself doing sort of a hybrid thing with the majority of your work? Sort of you incorporating a part of analog in there as well as in the box?
Yeah, a lot of my mastering I do mobile. Like just the last vlog I put up, I was literally sitting on the edge of the Grand Canyon, mastering a song with nothing but my laptop and this guy, the Apogee Groove for listening. This Apogee Groove, it's a really excellent digital to analog converter. So it really helps you hear hear far better than just plugging headphones into your laptop. Hear what you're doing, and yeah. So that master was very much all digital. I love to use the FabFilter Pro L. Do either of you guys use that one?
Yeah, yeah, big fan.
FabFilter Pro L. When you get into the advanced settings, you know, you have like 4 different types of limiting. You can make it punchy or dynamic or transparent or all around better, whatever that means. And you have very fine control over the attack and release times of the limiter and the look ahead. And really what I realized one day when I just, you know, I did the constant gain to just crank it up 30 dBs up and 30 dB down, just to like listen to, you know, what happens at the extremes of this limiter, cycling through the different modes. And it's like, wait, this is all just sort of like analog clipping. This sound is the extreme of analog clipping. And here's one converter, here's another converter, here's another converter, here's another converter. I can pick what converter I want, digital converter, I guess, technically, converter emulation. And then I can fine tune attack and release to sort of optimize it for that, and then pull back the look ahead so there's a little less distortion, bring it back down, and now I've created this sound completely digitally that sounds like I did a loop back through you know, really high quality converters. So that's a very cool sound, and if you have the L,
Agreed, it's great.
if you have the Pro L, it's definitely worth experimenting.
That and the EQ are absolutely fantastic. Definitely.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Pro Q2 is just that's on my mastering chain. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your mastering chain? Just joking. Just joking.
No, let me tell you. I'll tell you all about it. So yeah, I set up this template in Pro Tools. There's a sort of workaround where if you save a project as a template and then you change the extension name to PTX to PTXT, then you know your computer's going to yell at you and say you can't do that, and then you just say yes I can, and then you drag it to a different file, and now what you've done is rather than creating a project template that is locked to a specific sample rate, you've created the tracks in that template as tracks, as a track preset. So just like you can open up a new audio track or a new bus or a new master file, you can open up these 4 tracks with these plugins already on them with the settings you want them to be. So yeah, so I have a load-in track. That's just an audio track that's sent to bus 1. Bus 1 is where I build my console, and that gets recorded out onto a print bus below that. The console, we start with Plugin Alliance, Brainworks, VX, Digital V3. That's an equalizer. It's a mid-side equalizer with a wideness knob, and it has a, you know, sum to mono below this frequency. It actually has a single band dynamic EQ built into it, which is very cool. And really, really excellent sort of spatial properties that you can mess with. Very accurate monitoring options. And yeah, you flip it from mid-side to left, right, whatever you want to do there. But that EQ is just really, really surgical. I love what it does to highs. I love what it does to sub frequencies. Like if you just put a shelf down at 30, crank it up as high as it can go. Oh my gosh, that is the sound of 808 that you need.
The rumble, you gotta love it.
Yeah. So that's the first plugin. Right after that is the FabFilter Pro Q2. So it's a bit more of the Brainworks EX Digital is definitely spatial properties, wideness, a low shelf and a high shelf, and very rarely do I use the middle three bands um, to boost or cut mid-range bells. That's when the Pro Q comes in, and I do most of the sculpting of the mid-range with the Pro Q. And in terms of what's it called? There's like low latency mode. You can also bump it up to linear phase,
oversampling and stuff.
very very high linear phase. That very much just sort of depends on what content I get, because when you do that linear phase stuff, it can really mess up transients if you take it too far. So you got to really punch.
Yeah, it's not the perfect instrument, you know, linear phase by all means. I don't always use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though on paper sometimes it's the right EQ, that's not necessarily how it works, you know.
That's exactly right. So yeah, I sort of let the song dictate whether it's going to be in linear phase or not. After that, I put another one by FabFilter, the Saturn, which is a saturation plugin. And this is my secret to the Saturn. I don't see too many people doing this, or I don't know if I've seen anyone do this in a tutorial online, but this is how I use it. This is how I love it. In Saturn, you can set up different bands of, and you can saturate more or less in different regions. And so I use Saturn with its stock. You turn it on and it has tape saturation. That's what I use it for. But I actually split out this band from 60 hertz to about 440. 440 is like the middle of the spectrum. Everything, you know, if you're a musician, you know, middle C is 2-3 notes away from A440, but middle C is the middle of the piano. Everything below that is considered low. Everything above that is considered high. And if you ask the average Joe on the street to listen to this, does it sound high or low? If they say it's high, 9 out of 10 times it's above middle C. You get my idea.
It's a good little tip, yeah.
But yeah, so this frequency band 440 down to 60 is capturing just lows, and without the extreme lows, of sub frequencies. But low frequencies only, no high frequencies, no subs. I only saturate that band. Everything else is left alone. So there's no extra saturation on the subs, so it's not creating weird harmonics in the low range. It's not saturating the highs because I have other tools to do that I like better. But just getting that tape saturation in the low range only really helps craft. That's definitely my sound. I don't know. I like the way it really just adds extra harmonics and saturation and just goodies to low range instruments.
No, that's awesome. That's because the thing with that is as well, like by saturating the bottom end, you're creating harmonic content probably above middle C. So you don't want to accumulate to a build up of all of these new harmonics across the entire range, you know, and then you're going into ranges that you don't actually want to go into. So it actually makes perfect sense. It's a really, really good tip.
Yeah, so that's how I use the Saturn. That's how I use tape saturation. After that, there's a plugin that I use sometimes, not too often, but it is in the chain. BX Refinement, Rainworks again. It is
taming things.
What's that?
Great at taming over harsh things.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like a de-esser, sort of.
Yeah, it's odd controls on it.
Yeah, it is very odd controls, and sometimes it's exactly what a song needs, and oftentimes it's not. But sometimes it is, so I have it on there, so I can turn it on if need be. You know, typically if something's recorded very digitally, with not a lot of analog equipment, it can be very helpful. If it's something that's very warm already, you're just gonna go too far with it. There's no need for it. But those are the only 4 plugins that are doing something to audio that are built into my chain automatically. I think that with compressors, they're very individual, and I have a whole bunch of options for songs, but I've tried building my template with different specific compressors that are just like in, and I always end up being like, no, that's not the right compressor, and let me just turn this off, close it, and bring in the compressor that I want. So I actually don't put any compressors anymore in my mastering template, because I know that if I need one, I'm gonna know that it's a very specific one that I want, and it's probably not gonna be the one that I build into the template for every song. So when I do want to compress, I'll fetch it from my list of plugins. I very much like the Slate Digital has the virtual bus compressor series, has sort of an SSL type compressor, and then sort of a Fairchild type compressor, and then sort of a, I don't know what the red is.
I use the red sometimes in mastering. I like the sort of hard, snappy feel that it has.
Yeah, it's hard and snappy. I like it. What else do I use? I use a couple compressors from Brainworks. The Alpha compressor is really something special. The Pro C, FabFilter Pro C, it's great. Also FabFilter Pro MB, if you're looking for a multiband compressor. I have a problem with multiband compressors. I just don't like them. I've never ever, no, not never ever, but it's maybe one song out of 1,000 that I actually use a multiband compressor on and think, yes, I like this. This is an improvement. So often I will try a multiband compressor and be like, no, this is not working. I'm done, and just turn it off.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I used to use multi-band compressors more so than I do now. I mean, to be honest, ever since I started using TDR Nova, I've consolidated so many things into that one plugin. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's insanely versatile.
Right.
And it helps me solve a lot of problems which I used to solve with various compressors and like EQs and multi-bands, but now I find my process getting more in terms of plugins and stuff, getting simpler and simpler and simpler. In fact,
streamlining.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say I actually don't compress too often in the blocks. Usually I will compress. If I'm going to compress, I'm going to compress with the Neve.
Understandable.
Well,
yeah,
you know,
you're right. It definitely it is a Swiss Army knife of compressors. You can get so many different sounds out of it. And then after that, I just crank it up into converters, and that's the sound. That's the sound of the LA Recordist. In terms of metering, because I know that stuff's very important, there's a couple meters that I turn to always. That would be the Brainworks meter, the X meter. Has a beautiful dynamic, floating dynamic.
Yeah, float's great for that.
Really awesome. You know, and you can also use that to look at, you know, how's it looking on Bobcats as a case system? How's it looking? A weighted, B weighted, C weighted. Also lets you listen to the sides, the left, the right, the mid, whatever. That's really excellent. And then I also used is it Klangheim? The VU
Helm, I think.
Klanghelm is the cheapest plugin I've ever bought, and the most used plugin I've ever bought. It is really, really incredible to be able to look at VU meters on a digital screen. Definitely
Agreed.
extremely valuable.
Very intuitive to read, you know, especially as you use it over time. You really start to, because I look at it every so often, and it just kind of validates what I already hear.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought I was, and it's just good to know.
With, you know, it's an interesting thing because with you know, looking at the Brainworks meter, I could be looking at very, very, very small amount of dynamic range. But then I look at the VU meters, and they're going from off to whoosh, 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 like this. And I can know from that, okay, I'm not reading this as dynamics, but the VU meters are showing me that sound is moving, right? The actual physical waveforms are being pushed in and out of the speakers. It might not register as dynamics digitally, but speakers, when putting this music out, are definitely going to push this music out.
Indeed, indeed.
Also, I use Isotope Insight, but that's whatever. Good way to look at LUFS. It's a good way to look at frequency spectrum, goinometry, just all in one pane.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much my metering chain, pretty much minus Insight. I use VUMT, I use BX, I use Span, Voxengo Span.
Yeah.
I use Ulean, and offline I use Auburn.
Auburn's great.
Which is freaking awesome. Like being able to like print down your master and then read it offline, really, really useful.
Nice.
But yeah, I really like VUMT. It's probably the one that I look at the most, as well as BX. It's good to know. It's interesting the different ways you can measure dynamics.
Yeah.
There are untold ways to do it, you know, varying integration times, varying units, DR, crest factor, macro, micro, you know, loudness range, you know, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But I suppose if I was looking at all of them and they were all pinned, then I'd be alarmed. You know, like, oh wow, like even VUMT is pinned. Yeah, I've definitely cooked it. I burnt that.
You know, that's the scary thing with this sort of new Pure 2 is that it is so easy to cook stuff, and it still doesn't sound bad.
Yeah.
It's tempting. Makes it very tempting.
Yeah, I'm looking at, you know, I was working on this track last night. I had this idea of a YouTube series that I'm gonna probably hopefully be rolling out over the next couple weeks. YouTube actually provides YouTube actually provides royalty-free music for videos, for vlogs, and stuff like that. And I always want to be putting out stuff like, here's a mastering tutorial, but I also don't want to be releasing my clients' music before they release it. So that's sort of the constant battle of, oh, I want to show you guys how to do stuff. Well, I can't release this yet. Crap. But I was thinking I could totally just use the YouTube royalty-free music, slug it into a session, and remaster it, and you know, make a tutorial series out of that. But that is a tangent. Sorry. The point is, I was using one of those songs yesterday to sort of help calibrate the Pure 2 into the new. So I was just calibrating it last night, and man, I got that thing. I got that thing up to like -3 LUFS.
Oh God.
and it sounded amazing.
Good.
That's the scary thing. It was so loud. There were zero dynamics, but it sounded killer. I backed it off, of course, because that is too much. But
All things are relative.
yeah, if you need to pulverize something, get yourself a pure.
I mean, that's. I mean, obviously, -3 is really, really hot.
Yeah.
However, because what we're actually talking about is a peak to loudness ratio of 3 or 2, even depending on where you set your peak headroom.
Yeah.
However, if it sounds good, man, and it does sound good, and it's not just loud.
Your ears are the final confirmation at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, that's how we measure music, isn't it? At the end of the day,
Yeah,
because it's like kind of like what we said before in the group, Will, is that and I'm trying to get this across now to the community, is that yes, the loudness wars are kind of over, but doesn't necessarily mean more dynamic is better.
true.
It's
very rare that I find a song that actually sounds right at -13 or -14.
Yeah, I actually find myself, because I don't look at LUFS until late, until I've found the loudness sweet spot.
Yeah.
Which isn't predetermined, so and sometimes I did an EDM thing recently, and it was like -6.5 integrated LUFS.
Nice.
But what was interesting was it didn't sound that loud. It was because I obviously worked to a fixed level.
Yeah,
it just sounded as loud as everything else did. The same, my internalized volume standard, it sounded the same as everything else, which just goes to show that, and this is something I'm always trying to get across, is that LUFS is not loudness. It's just another unit relative to full scale. Okay. And, it's got frequency weighting and stuff like that, but that's not perfect. And, loudness is actually a subjective perceptual auditory sensation. Nothing else measures loudness other than loudness,
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, that was I went off in a bit of a thing there.
No, it's cool. Is that tune? I'm guessing there's a lot of low end. If you're gonna get it up to -6.5, and it still sounds good.
Yeah, it's got some.
That sounds to me like it's a song with a whole lot of low end. Yeah. No.
A whole lot of what? Sorry.
Low end.
Low end.
Yeah.
Depends, I suppose.
No. Maybe. Yeah. Anyway, all good. Just wondering.
But sometimes I find myself dynamically managing the bottom end and stuff like that, because what I'll do is I'll get there, I'll get to the level,
yeah,
and then if I find inconsistent issues, because if it was a consistent issue, then it's like I need to dial back. I'm beyond, right? But if there's inconsistent issues, I kind of work backwards in the chain quite often. I get there because, again, I work to a fixed monitoring level. I get to where the loudness needs to be because that's how because that's how I can better measure everything else, dynamics EQ.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, cool. If there's inconsistent issues here, then whack a TDR nova in there and then dynamically tame the problem frequency area that's creating distortions and artifacts as a result of.
Yeah. Sometimes I do that as well. Where I will adjust the need first and get that final dynamic level where I want it to be. And then from there work backwards, then pop in the EQs. Once the loudness is where I want it, once the dynamic range is where I want it, then you're like, okay, now now we're here. Now most of the battle is over. Now what can I do to really make this pop even further? Because once loudness is in place, in my experience anyway, you can hear a 1 dB EQ shelf better.
Yeah, of course.
You can hear once loudness is optimized, once your dynamic range is optimized, once the song is like in the space that it should be, 1 dB up, 1 dB down is a lot more noticeable than when you're working with a mix and you haven't brought it up to level yet.
Absolutely. And obviously, you know, Fletcher Munson curve and everything, the EQ is different at different levels. So it makes sense to get to the level first, so that
absolutely,
because otherwise you're you know, you're not necessarily making the right EQ judgment if you're not at the right, what is effectively the SPL at the listening position now.
That's right. That's right. And that's definitely Howie's workflow as well. He will gain stuff up to the proper loudness, and then he'll decide, okay, do I want an EQ? Do I want this EQ or that EQ or that EQ? Do I want a little bit of compression? He almost never uses compression. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean, you know, I mean, it depends on your school of thought. I rarely use compression, but I do use dynamic EQ like 50% of the time. You know, which is compression really.
Yeah.
You know, it's volume automation basically. So, but not everything needs compression, like many people would have you believe. But there's also some people who are the school of thought that there is no mix bus processing until mastering, which is not where I am at with that. You know?
it depends entirely.
Yeah. But also, just because you slammed the limiter on the mix bus in the mix project doesn't mean you mastered it. You know, it's not. That's an extension of mixing. You know.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's great if you need to throw something in the car for the band to hear on the day of the mixing session. But yeah, not mastering.
Yeah, it's definitely a mentality shift.
Encourage people to, like, you know, when mixing, get there in mixing. You know, if you want to compress the mix, because you can't achieve the sound of compressing the mix bus and anywhere else other than the mix bus.
That's right.
You know, it's not the same as obviously loading compressors on each track, because you're compressing the sum signal, and sometimes that's the sound, you know. And over time we are invariably conditioned to less dynamics, you know, with the loudness wars and everything like that. It's created the sound of loudness, which is a thing in itself. Anyway,
here's a fun one. I was working on a track the other day that was literally all sub frequencies, a kick drum, and one shaker. And I had to master it to sound great on iPhones because it was going to go on an Instagram stuff.
saturation comes to mind.
It was literally like everything in this song happens below what a telephone speaker can put out, except for the shaker, right? So what am I going to do to make this happen? I mean, hey, it's my job, right? My job is to master for the proper format and get the most out of whatever I can, right? So that was a challenge, guys. I did end up using a lot of that tape saturation trick that I told you about earlier, where I just middle band and pushed up a whole bunch of frequencies into the upper range. And very fortunately, the Neve has another saturation that you can use for the low end that I definitely pulled that one in as well. If I had Waves plugins, I would have used Max Bass probably, but I don't have Waves plugins, so I didn't use MaxBase. Actually, another one that I did, I used an Octaver. I used a simple. I got a bus and I rolled out the shaker and I put an Octaver on that bus, so the entire mix is playing one octave up, but quieter underneath the mix. And then the last step was really just the loudness control, because it was an EDM song. It was like a deep house mix type thing. So, you know, the initial thought is crank this for the club, but
No.
yeah, but
Distribution's a big thing.
it especially didn't work out on an iPhone. You know, I bounced it out. I emailed it to myself in MP3 format because, you know, that's how it's going to stream back on Instagram. And gosh, it was just all distortion. It was all distortion. So yeah, I had to end up, you know, like turning down the peak loudness. Was, I mean, the peaks were hitting around -2.5. There's a very decent amount of dynamic range on that one as well, and it turned out really good. It turned out, you know, where you can't necessarily hear the kick drum, but you can hear that there's a kick drum there.
You should create a certification that is mastered for Instagram and detail everything that you did in that master as guidelines in a PDF.
Mastered for iPhone speakers. Yeah.
Mastered for IG, you know, MFIG, MFIG.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's
What is
perfect.
it coming to?
That just happened.
Yeah, we'll do it. It.
Awesome. So that's really cool, man. Lots of useful tips regarding all of the above. What I'd like to ask you about actually is, as you've mentioned, you as a mastering engineer, as a mixer as well. Would you mind talking a bit more about your business outside of Howie? Obviously, everything you've talked about is Will Borza, LA Recordist, Double Hook.
Yeah, Double Hook. Double Hook is that's the company that I came up with a friend from high school back in 2006. So company's old now. Company's 11. That's cool. But yeah, but I mean, I just do mostly freelancing. I know my specialty is mastering, so I try and tell people, hey, my specialty is mastering, and they say, oh, great, can you record this? Come on. No, but I do mobile recordings. I have, you know, like I showed you before, the H6, and I have 2 very small collapsible mic stands, and I have a stereo bar, and I have some KSM 137 mics, and I have some KSM 32 mics, really nice Shure microphones, and some dead cat windscreens. And so I will take a camera bag, and the camera bag has you know, those 4 mics, the windscreens, the cabling, the H6, and I carry the 2 mic stands, and you know, I can record anywhere. The last recording I did was with a friend on the beach in Santa Barbara, and he has this really great acoustic guitar, singing. So I have a mic on his voice, and I have a stereo bar on the guitar, and you know, you hear the ocean in the background.
Amazing.
Man, it's like your vlog, man. I'm starting to get romantic about Los Angeles and stuff, you know, man.
That's it.
Yeah. So that one's gonna be coming out pretty soon. Music's okay. He's a younger guy, but it sounds really good, and I think he did a good job with the performance, and I took some video of it as well, because, you know, that percussionist 3 years ago said, hey, do you do video too? And so yeah, now I do video. That's my whole gig is if you want recordings, I'm not the guy to come to for a vocal demo. You know, I don't have an ISO booth. I don't want an ISO booth. to be real. I don't really want to do that kind of stuff. It was fun at first when I was getting into the business, but I soon realized this is not what I want to spend my days doing. But if you want to record at the top of a mountain, I'm your guy. If you want to go down to the sewers and find a really cool, real reverb, I'm your guy. You know, if you want to go down to the river and get some rushing water in the background, I'm your guy. And I can get a video of it too. So that's my recording stuff. Definitely not tracking, definitely not overdubs, but really just more of a field recording, capturing raw audio out in the real world. Then for mixing, similar thing. I tell people I don't really do. I'm not so much into vocal tuning or drum sample replacement kind of stuff. Just because I don't really have good. I don't have autotune. I don't have Melodyne. I don't have Drumagog or anything like that. So I don't want to tell people I can do stuff that I physically can't. I don't have those tools. I don't particularly want those tools because that's not the type of music that I'm interested in working with. So if I am going to do a mix, it's going to be either already tuned if they need the tuning, or it's going to be more of a real recording, real instruments, maybe a band, maybe a big band or a funk band. We got some really cool tunes coming out that I just mixed. You actually heard them. There's a tap dancer.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was fantastic.
That was the first time I ever heard a tap dancer. That was like, wow, how do you mix a tap dancer? I ended up calling her and saying like, hey, I've never worked on tap before. What sound do you want? Because my initial thought was, tap dance like the old 1940s movies, and it's just going to be all click and no body. And she's like, no, that's not how you do tap anymore. That's how it sounded, just because that is the limit of their recording abilities back then. But real tap, you can get so much more of the sound of the wood, so much more of the sound of the board that they're tapping on. That is the kind of mixing that I love to do. I love to do real bands, funk music, jazz music. My background is jazz. I'm a jazz trumpet player. Cool. That's the school that I come from, and I have a lot of friends in college that play that kind of music. So that's really cool to work with them. So for mixing on my own stuff, my own separate double hook mixing, mixing is going to be mostly real instruments, less pop music. And mastering, I can master anything. Awesome. I can master a turd. It's still going to be a turd, but it'll be shiny.
You can roll in glitter.
And that is,
yeah.
That is some advertising copy if I ever heard it, man.
And practice.
You need to put some Facebook ad dollars against that.
Yeah.
Just like use like a poop emoji and some glitter on. I don't know.
I can polish a
turd. Got a turd? I'll polish it. I'm your guy.
Yeah.
And I'll make it loud.
Yeah.
Excellent. And in terms of as we start to wrap up, where can people hear more about you, and where can they go, and what can they expect going forward?
Sure. Okay. Well, you can find my YouTube channel. That is the LA Recordist. LA like Los Angeles.
Still going down there as well.
Okay, perfect. The LA Recordist is that's my name on YouTube, and that's the name I go by there. It's the analog vlog, and there's a whole bunch of content that you can catch up on while I am going to be putting out some more content. You can also join the Analog Mob on Facebook, which is very small right now, but it's going to grow slowly and steadily, and I hope it's going to be a wonderful community. You should also join the Unlock Your Sound community if you haven't, just because that place is amazing. It really, in terms of like the time I spend on Facebook, so much of my time is not scrolling down my own wall. It's just going through Unlock Your Sound, and it's also going through Nick Lorenzo's Panorama group.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really love hanging out with you guys there.
Likewise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but definitely the analog mob is going to be growing. So I'd encourage you to check that out. And I'm also in the early stages of writing a book on mastering, and possibly even putting out a short mastering course on mastering. We'll see how that comes along. I don't know. I could probably use your help for that, Chris.
Awesome, man. Well, love to help, love to collab. No, that's really cool. Alec, did you have any other questions for Will at all?
I suppose the one thing that we generally like to look at, especially with sort of our listenership and sort of a lot of people within our groups are aspiring and looking to sort of work in the industry. What would you say is the one piece of advice you were told while sort of making your way through industry that's sort of stuck with you and you hold fairly dear and sort of helped you?
Wow. Okay. Here's one. If people want you, things happen fast. If people want to hire you, they're going to hire you that day or the next. If you haven't heard from them by the next day, move on. The music business is a very fast-paced environment, and when things do happen, it's going to be immediate, and you have to be ready. You have to be completely ready. You have to know your stuff inside and out, so that when that opportunity does arrive, you're prepared. That's what they say luck is, right? When preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
You make your own luck.
You create luck. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yourself to succeed.
If I hadn't spent the last 10 years doing audio and I got that call from Howie Weinberg, I would not have been prepared, and I would not be in the position I am in. Yeah, so there's that. And then the other big piece of advice is just meet as many people as you can and nurture relationships really hard, and always be, I know it's a bad word, but networking, always be, you don't have to call it networking, just call it hanging out.
Exactly.
It is what it is. It is networking. There's nothing wrong with it. It's exactly how it works. We're all in the people business, you know?
Yeah, totally. People business, networking, hanging out. Yeah, my start was from, I had an internship, and the studio owner actually sadly passed away right before, like, I got hired for the internship. Guy passed away before I started the internship, so I came in on day one to an empty studio. I came in on day one to a fully functional studio that had no owner. And so my internship was just, hey, go in there and learn how that stuff works.
Welcome to the deep end. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. You have no instruction, no rules. Try not to break anything. Have fun.
That's the best way to learn, Matt.
And you know, then they started throwing artists at me, and I had to produce them and make records, and I ended up becoming the studio manager, and eventually that studio liquidated, but I was able to take a lot of the gear from it, buy a lot of the gear at wholesale, and that's how I got my start. So internships are cool. Doing stuff for free at first is cool, but then start charging as soon as you possibly can. But just to get that initial list of people, just to get that initial, you know, resume.
Awesome. No, that's really good advice, man, and thanks for sharing sort of how you you come up, because that's exactly what I had in mind for this show. You know, kind of shedding light on that stuff, because like I said, it's not necessarily what everyone wants to hear, but it's the truth.
Yeah. It's such a long game too. I've been doing this audio stuff for 10 years, and only now am I seeing any amount of success. And I don't even want to call it success, because what my definition of success is like so far beyond where I am right now. But people have come to me and said, "Hey, how did you get so successful?" I'm like, well, I don't consider myself successful, but I can see how people could see what I do as success.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's success. If you ever say, "Hey, I'm successful," that's when you stop growing. You know, that's when you stop pushing forward. And I hope to always never consider myself successful, so I'm always just pushing forward, always going for the next thing. Hey, I want a Grammy. I want to win 2 Grammys. I want to win 5 Grammys. Hey, I got this gold record. I want a platinum record. You know, I want a diamond record. Like, let's
continuous growth.
Definitely.
Yeah, success is a process, isn't it?
It is. It is very much so. But yeah, 10 years. Let me put it this way. 10 years in, I'm only in the last year have I been supporting myself full time on audio income.
Awesome.
So it was a long game.
I can relate to that.
Don't get discouraged.
That's a practical measure of success, I suppose, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Will. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And,
thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me.
Like I said, I'll drop all of the links in the relevant places where the links go. You know, and I look forward to seeing more content.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Come on.
Waiting for the subscription list to just pop up.
Definitely, and I can't wait to talk to you guys again. It's gonna be great.
Excellent.
Absolutely. We'll have to do this again soon.
Love it.
Cool. Have a nice day, Will. Take care.
All right, guys.
All right.
Take care, everyone. Speak soon.
See ya.